Howdy Pit Masters, today we are doing beef shorties. Good old beef short ribs. So to start off, trimming this fat cap and any silver skin, we're going to cut right across here in the middle. Now, this isn't the best cut that I could find. Kind of got to the shops a little late, and so there's not a whole lot of meat on these things. And down towards the bone, there isn't a lot of fat, and there's not a lot of meat. So we're going to trim these as evenly as we can by pretty much slicing right through the top layer and getting off that excess fat and silver skin. However, it is going to also leave us a little bit short on meat, but for this example, not a problem. So now that we got off that top layer, and we'll trim these little bits of really hard, unrenderable fat off just here. And again, it may leave us a little short on meat, but we really don't want that fat, that really hard, thick fat getting into our meat here, because it will not break down, it will not render, especially given how thin this rack is towards the bones here. But it's still going to be a good cut, it's going to taste great. That is good. That's quite enough marbling, and that should do the trick. So now we're going to flip this thing over and we're going to remove this membrane. So to do this, if you create a little incision up in the top corner here, grab it, then grab yourself a little bit of paper towel, and with one good rip, just like that, it should come straight off. There you go. You've removed the membrane and we're ready to rub this thing up. So today I'm using Meat Church BBQ Holy Cow Beef Rub. Goes great on all kinds of beef. So I'm using a little bit of olive oil here as a binder, and then I'm just going to apply this rub pretty liberally on all sides here. It's just a bit more oil to get this stuff to stick. So I'm going to rub it up nice and evenly, about 30 centimeters up. We're going to sprinkle it down, that way we get a real even coat all across, and we're not clumping it in some spots and then leaving less in other areas. And we can't forget the sides as well, so a bit of olive oil on the sides and rub up the sides. And once you've done that, ready to get the pit up to temperature and then get these things on the smoker. So today I've just got Heapy's original briquettes in the chimney here with all natural, 100% natural fire lighters. Used a heap here to get these things burning quickly. Once these are grey ashed over, then we're good to pour them in the bottom of the smoker. Now, just a tip on the water bowl here. I don't fill mine up. I find the temperature stabilizer is pretty fine without it, but lining it in tin foil just avoids, any messy cleanup from all the drips dripping down into this water pan. So you can just rip that tin foil off and you're good to go. No cleaning. Alright, briquettes are looking good here. Most of them are ashed over, a little bit of later at the top, but all good. Now, I've got my briquettes lined out unlit on the outside, and then direct in the middle, minion method style, we're going to pour in the lit coals. And they're going to eventually burn over into that double layer snake of briquettes on the outside. And this will allow us to have a long burn time, whilst maximising getting it real hot to begin with by having that pile of lit coals in the middle. So we're going to get the rest of this bullet cooking chamber on, clipped down on both sides. Our water pan is lined in there, locked in, and then once this is all clipped up and ready to go, we'll be ready to get the meat on. So what we're going to do to bring the temp up is we're going to open up all three of these bottom intake vents. By opening them fully, we're going to get as much heat in through this bullet smoker as possible. So make sure all three are open here fully, and that our exhaust here is also open most of the way, if not 3/4 of the way open, to allow that heat to flow in and out the smoker. Then we'll come back when this thing's up to 250 Fahrenheit, ready to put the meat in. Okay, so what I'm using today is ironbark chunks that I've cut down from ironbark splits, which are an Aussie smoking wood that's used pretty popular here. Now, to get these preheated, I'm going to sit them on a brick and put them right under one of the intakes here. That way it gets that heat direct from the coals, heating them up. If you put cold or non-preheated chunks directly on this fire, they're not going to burn properly, just purely because of the size of the charcoal chunk, the amount we have in there in the basket. And it's just going to smolder, and you're going to get that white poison ashy smoke, and you're not going to get a clean burn. We want that thin blue smoke, clean burning. Alright, you can see here the pit's almost up to 250 Fahrenheit. So now as we're getting close to hitting that 250, we're at about 235, 240, we're going to start closing off these vents just a little bit. And what that should do is dial in and stabilize that temperature. So by the time it hits 250 Fahrenheit, it should start to just stay there and hover around. Now if it doesn't, or it goes up, or it's a little below, we just adjust these vents a little tiny bit at a time. Not all 3 vents, just the ones we need to. Alright, now that we're up to temp, grab one of our ironbark pieces, and we're going to, these preheated ones, and we're going to just chuck it directly on the very hot coals here, and leave this door open for airflow intake. So I always leave the door open when I've got the wood in on these bullet smokers, just because I tend to find not enough oxygen gets through to the fire through the intakes. Good for heat management, but not so much for keeping the burning wood. So I'll leave this door open. Alright, so I use this weird little tile brick hack to hold this door open, which I just came up with now because the damn wind kept closing it. But anyway, because I used a preheated wood chunk, it caught light within about 35 to 40 seconds. Got a little bit of tiny bit of white smoke, but it caught lit real quick, and now we've got that clean burning thin blue smoke, which is exactly what you want. Now, I kept them on that brick at the bottom there, to heat them up, but right before I put them on, I just sit them right up the top here on the top of the smoker, because there's a real hot heat. I don't leave them there for too long, because they start to get a bit of a burn, but that's what I do right before I chuck them in. So our smoker got up to 250 Fahrenheit, as you might have seen on the dial there, which means we are ready to put this rack of beef shorties on right here. So we've got our Meter Plus wireless smart meat thermometer in here. Now you can use a wired one, an analog. Keep checking with a Thermopen instant read type thermometer. I'm using the smart thermometer. Here we go, pop the lid on. We're off. Alright, dialed in at a perfect 250. The first chunk is burnt out, so let's get another one on the fire here. Alright, I reckon this should catch light pretty quickly. Just move it around here and it should catch pretty shortly. Alright, so these things have been on for quite a while, about 6 hours or so. Still pretty moist, but just to make sure that smoke sticks to this and to keep these nice and juicy and not dry out, we're just going to give them a spritz. I'm using just water. Sometimes I use apple juice, but in this time I'm just using just water, as it's going to do the trick. Put the lid back on. Alright, now we are about 8 hours in. Oh, well, 7 hours in, 7.5 hours in, and we're going to wrap these things. Now, I would normally use pink butcher paper to preserve the bark that we've created, because we've created a really nice bark on these ribs, but I only have tin foil. But if we do this right, and because we've left the wrapping right to very late in the cook, we should be able to preserve most of this bark. So I'm going to wrap it up, speed these things through the cook, and it's going to keep them real tender, really juicy. Going to put them back on the pit until these things are ready to be checked for doneness, which will be very soon. Just make sure they're wrapped up real tightly, lid back on, and we'll come back and check them soon. Okay, we are now about 9.5 hours in. This thing's been wrapped for a little while. We've tried not to wrap it too long, because I don't want to ruin the bark using tin foil, but also wrapped it enough that it's moistened it up and brought the heat up. We're at about 200 Fahrenheit internal from the smart thermometer, and now I'm just using this instant read to probe it. Basically, just to probe all different areas, and filling this, it's all going straight through like butter. No resistance at all. So, we're ready to get this thing off and into a cooler for a couple hours. Alright, so grab your esky or whatever cooler you got, keep it in the tin foil, wrap it real tightly in a towel, and put it in the bottom of the cooler, and we're going to let this meat hold for a couple of hours, anywhere from 40 minutes to up to a couple of hours, to let the juices go back into the meat, tenderize, and continue to go up in heat. That way any leftover collagen and muscle tissues break down. Alright, I've rested these ribs for about just over 2 hours. Yep, just over the 2 hour mark. And now we're ready to cut them open and slice. Oh, as soon as you rip open that tin foil, whew, smells incredible. Now, like I said, we're using tin foil, you can sometimes ruin the bark, but because we timed it just perfectly towards the end of the cook, it's juicy, tender, and that bark is still very rock hard and just has an awesome texture to it. So job well done there. Alright, time to slice these bad boys up. Alright, here we go. Let's get these things carved up. Cannot wait. Oh, like butter. That knife is gliding through like butter. You know it's going to be a good job when it carves through like that. Look at that. Look at that smoke ring. Perfectly juicy. You can smell the flavours coming off of this thing. Look at that. Very tender. Absolutely incredible. Look at that. Look at that smoke ring. Look at that tenderness. Still so juicy in there. Look at that. Oh. Let's give her a taste test. Piece of resistance. Oh my god. That probably has to be probably the best beef shorties I've ever done. Flavour on the bark and the rub is incredible. Perfect amount of smoke, and look at that colour of the ring. The tenderness, juiciness. Pulls away from the bone. That's good barbecue, people. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is Mark from Grill Mark's Barbecue. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us on socials, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. And yeah, get smoking, people. Cheers, everybody.